wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the healthy family podcast with your hosts Jo Whitten and Fuad Kassab.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of A Quirky Journey. This is your host Fuad Kassab, and with me, sitting in her car overlooking the most beautiful sight on the planet, is my good friend Jo Whitten. Hello, Jojo.
Hello, Fufu. I'm sitting here at a lookout in between appointments thinking, you know, this is a good place to sit in the mornings. It's so beautiful. It's a little bit wet, but other than that, it's beautiful.
You can't have it all, Jo. You can't.
Right. Can't have blue skies every day. That's how we get such green grass up here in rainforest. All the rain. No, it's lovely.
The podcast is really nice podcast today. It's very cruisy. It's with Sharon Flynn. Sharon is the owner and founder of a Melbourne-based business called the Fermentary. And she makes incredible ferments like krauts and kefirs and things like that. And she's the author of a beautiful book called Ferment For Good, Ancient Foods for the Modern Gut. And today we talk to her about her journey through life. So it's how she found herself through fermentation. She's had a really interesting life of a lot of travel and she didn't spend more than 2 years in the one spot. Is that what she said?
I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
She's sort of been everywhere. You know, after we got off the podcast yesterday, I grabbed her book and flicked through it because she talked a lot about Japan and what she learnt about fermented foods and living in the culture. And
yes.
Of course, Isaac is totally mad about Japan and anything Japanese because he's learning Japanese and he's doing really well with it. And he's got a lot of Japanese friends he talks to online. And so I found all the excerpts in the book where she talks about Japan and I just read them all to him. And we really enjoyed it. Her book has a lot of stories in it as well as the recipes. And it gives you that background of the food. Like you can read all about natto and how she first found it and what it's like and how you eat it, but it's very much told in a story form and it's very, very good to read. So, yeah, it's one of those books that you just pick up and want to read.
That's it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. So she has a lot of stories in there, which that's wonderful because we're dealing with a very traditional food, an ancient food. And this is what we're all about here. We're all about looking at the ways that our ancestors found to maximize nutrition and benefit from the food that they ate and to be in harmony with the seasons. And fermentation is really a tool for that, and it is steeped in so much culture and history and personal stories. It's wonderful to be able to really read that and get her perspective on it, for someone who lives their life professionally making these things. And her life is marinating in a crock pot herself. So it's
and she just keeps getting better and better.
She does. These things require a lifetime of understanding for mastery. So
I love how the podcast sort of, it wasn't just a boring podcast about the technicalities of fermenting. It was about life and patience and learning and growing and slow living and slow cooking and traditional cultures, and not about fad diets and trendy stuff. It was about traditional foods and just the beauty of them. I loved it.
Beautiful. I loved it too. Hopefully the recording went well. There was a little bit of glitches in the sound and a bit of delay. So I found myself asking too many questions and not giving Jo the opportunity to ask as many because she had a delay and I didn't know when she was talking and when she was not. So whenever I have like a 2-second silence, I feel freaked out. I was like, I've got to ask a question quickly. So Jo, apologies if that happened.
No, don't worry. Yeah. I felt like it was the most important thing was to let her talk. So that's good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, we'll leave you to the podcast. Enjoy it. If you enjoy this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. It will help other people find us and to tune in. A lot of people don't know about us and they don't know about A Quirky Journey. And if this has been helpful for you, it's a very simple way to spread the message, because the more stars we have, the more iTunes will push us up in the charts and we'll be able to have visibility to other people. And your support is really, really valued here also send this to your friends. Just send them an email with the link if you enjoy it, and share it and tell them to subscribe. Just go to your podcast application on your phone and subscribe to A Quirky Journey, and enjoy the show. Sharon, hello. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Sharon.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Hello. How are you?
Good to hear you.
Wonderful. Sharon, we're super excited to have you here. We've had your book with us for many, many months now. And we've been meaning to get you on the podcast for a long time, ever since we met you, actually. So it's really wonderful to have you here finally and to be able to have this conversation. Before we...
Good to hear your voices.
Yeah, we're going to come down to Melbourne in December, so hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah.
I just actually put it up on my Facebook that you're coming down.
Thanks for that.
I know, but I didn't do a good job because people are saying, what is the date for a Tuesday?
They can click through.
Just look it up.
Yeah, click through.
Sharon, before we get into the details, just let us know, what did you have for breakfast today?
Oh my God.
Surprise question.
I have had a few slivers of panettone.
Wow,
I kept thinking I wasn't going to have any, so that the slices are very thin. You know what I mean? And then I kept going back for any.
There's a certain.
And then I just went for a chunk. Yeah.
You can allow yourself, like anything that's less than half a centimeter is not really eaten anything. So
That's right.
Well, my trick is
so basically, then I haven't had breakfast yet.
What do you usually have for breakfast?
Oh my gosh. It's been agreed in the last couple of days. So I've had and that was like seasonal fruit, apricots and anything that's in the bowl. And if it's really cold, I do like miso soup, a bit of natto and some rice. But I'm not a routine person. I love to have variety. So
we can certainly see you're not a routine person. Reading through the introduction of your book, you're a globetrotter who likes a lot of change and excitement in your life, and it seems like you've had an amazing life of travel and exploration. Can you walk us through a little bit about this amazing life that you've had and how you came into fermentation?
Okay. Well, thanks for saying it's amazing. When I say not a routine person, I just can't stick to routines. It's not that I'm really an interesting person. It's just I need
Yes, you are.
I need to change things up a lot, And that's probably how my life has been, because I'll look at something and go to the next thing. And when it came to fermenting, I did stick within the boundary of it. Do you know what I mean? With food, the next thing was always something fermented. So that turned out good. I was an army brat, so we moved around a lot with my dad, never living in the same place for more than 2 years, really, the same house. And then one of those postings was to Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur. That was really big in my life as far as food is concerned, because we had amazing food over there. And when I got back, I went straight off to Denmark as an exchange student for a year. And that was pretty much the beginning of fermenting, because I lived out in the country and they had an old cellar and a cold room, where you'd keep food instead of a refrigerator. And they fermented things. It was just a very old-fashioned, old-style food, and it was fantastic. Initially, I thought it was off. Everything was something wrong. But then I learnt it was very good. And when I got back, just went to finish school and started uni, and then went to Japan and stayed there for ages. I didn't plan that, but I just loved it so much, and I wanted to use all of my visa, and I ended up in the countryside with this really great job, and just stayed. And that was when also I learned a lot about food, and my main passion would have been fermenting, but I never would have called it that because it was just a bunch of new foods that I was learning about.
Sounds
I feel like I'm going on a monologue.
No,
that's all right.
Wait.
I mean,
that's
your story.
We want to hear your story. If we interrupt too much, the Skype gets a bit glitchy.
I'm like, are you still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay.
I would really love to.
Yeah, so that was an amazing time though.
I would love to hear what kinds of foods they had in Denmark that sounds fascinating, like no refrigeration and just the fermented foods in a cold room. Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't just fermented foods, even the meat that she'd cooked the night before, for example.
Yeah. That
would go on to the sort of, I would like to say, in my mind, it was all marble, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have been. It was a stone room, just rock room, and the shelving was there, and it was open. And
is this like a root cellar? Is that what they? Yep. Okay, right. So this is a very old way of basically keeping things cold and in a good climate so that they can last. You'll put things like potatoes and root vegetables and that kind of stuff in there as well, Sharon?
That's right. And they had sand that you'd put the root vegetables in.
Yeah.
In the ground. So that was the room that they had. You'd step down into it, not deep, but it was lower than the house floor. Well, the food there was initially. I was just I literally wrote home about it because there was no internet back then. In fact, while I was there, I think my family to communicate, which is hilarious. Actually, when you think back to that, because they had so many strawberries and things that in Australia, in my home, when Mum bought strawberries, there were 3 each in a bowl. That's the budget. But
that was us too.
It was like bowls of berries, so many berries. It was crazy. And she did a lot of things with them, and that sort of sticks in my mind. And buttermilk too. Drinking a lot of buttermilk and things that they made. And in my book, I sort of translated that to milk kefir. I wanted to put a lot more recipes with that in it, but we ended up having to choose some.
My grandmother had a cellar that you walked down into with all the jars lining the walls from the home. Some of it was probably fermented because she's from a German background, but it was also a lot of peaches and things like that, so the canned stuff. And it was really cold down there.
Yeah.
Even in summer, it was cold.
Nice.
Yeah, that was in Texas.
Wow, that's my dream now. I would love to have that.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be something in your life. This whole fermentation story wasn't something that you ever intended to walk down this path, and it seems that you found yourself through this process. However, that despite you never having planned to be here doing what you do, you've come to this, and it's basically opened you up to aspects of yourself that you never knew you would find enjoyment in or even fulfillment. And to me, that's such a wonderful thing. Something similar happened to me as well with my partnership with Joe. I never actually intended to be doing this work and talking to people about what I talk about, but I say I Forrest Gump my way here.
And I did too.
to this. Can you tell us a bit about? Yeah, exactly. Maybe can you talk to us a little bit about that kind of personal journey and how you've ended up where you are, and maybe the finding of the self that you've come through here, and how that's played itself out.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess that it did feel very spiritual. So after Japan, I met an American there, and we got married and had kids and kept traveling. Every time then I was a stay-at-home mum, and loved that so much. Actually, my eldest has just finished her last exam, so I'm particularly living in the past a little bit, thinking back to those times when they were little. Anyway, each time over there, I would, wherever we were, I'd sort of find a new thing, and they were always fermented. They're like pickles, but lacto-fermented pickles and cheeses. but it was when my youngest daughter got really sick, and when I was given a list of foods that would replace her gut bacteria, that felt sort of spiritual then, and that felt like, oh gosh, everything's all tied together, like with a red line. What I've been doing and to now, that was pretty amazing. And then I came back to Australia and started the business. That was also pretty much unintentional. It was a lot of work though, but it happened sort of one step after another, and it still is a little bit like that. I'm just, it's like, oh yeah, I actually do have a business.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds so much like us.
I feel shy about it, for the longest time.
Yeah.
I want to read a little section of your introduction in the book. I'll, if you don't mind, I just want to give the listeners a little bit of an idea. So this is on page 9 of your book. And I'll skip through a paragraph. In one part, you write, the ball was rolling and I wasn't even pushing it. In fact, I needed it to stop because I had no idea how to upscale. And then I look back in awe of that period of simultaneously working part-time at a school, solo parenting my kids, making and bottling up my ferments at night, and delivering on weekends between drop-offs to choir and music. But I'd started a small fire. I'd wake up with burning excitement, movement in my heart, and a head full of thoughts, plans, and dreams. It was also exhausting and a time of uncertainty, but I had created something, and I loved every second of it. I also felt I was doing important and work. So many people just starting to learn about gut health and bacteria imbalance, and I truly wanted to help them. What a beautiful way to express that time in your life and to condense it into that sentiment. And
I can't believe I wrote that.
You're like, wow, this is really well written. Whoever wrote that's very awesome.
Quite personal.
So you found your way into this, and it kind of seemed to unfold on its own because it was aligned with your path and purpose and the need of your life to express in that way so that you could help yourself, your family, and the people around you, and maybe give you a little bit of, to get rooted into your own life in a different way. What have you found in fermentation? As like you were a nomad in the first part of your life, and then there was this switch to finding roots within this craft that you have. Can you talk to us a little bit about?
Yeah, gosh. It's been pretty amazing actually, because you're right, that did plant me, and it gave me, in the first stage, people who would come and loved what I was doing, and we made friends or some kind of relationship through the food. And then I also made connections with people in the stores that I was delivering to, and a mutual respect for each other and our work. And then through that, I've met all my people. Yeah, people who love food or love the environment or want to change the food system in a way that recently I was with a friend who's not in food, and I sat there and I was like, oh my God, what do we talk about?
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
My foodies, yes. I was like, I can't keep talking about myself or what I'm interested in all the time, whereas when you're with other fermenters, you're right in there. You're able to indulge in that together. Yeah, I've never had anything like that before, other than perhaps baby group when I had my first babies. Just once, because after that you kind of don't want the brand new mums,
You're past that. You don't want to talk about nappies and feeding all day.
Yeah, you're like, come on, this is easy, get over it.
Yeah. But it is true, you really do connect with people.
Yeah, so it's been amazing. And the other thing, I think, when I first started, I was quite far outside of Melbourne, and I'd never lived in Melbourne, and I didn't have a great impression of it, actually. I didn't want to live here at all, but I was delivering to people's homes and seeing all kinds of lovely neighbourhoods and going into their home. Some people I still haven't met. They left their key in a hidden spot, and I'd take the ferment, put it in their fridge, take the cash, lock their door and go. a couple of them came and worked for us when they couldn't afford it for a while, and made all these really unusual friends. And then also I would drive to stores as we grew and deliver to the shops all over Melbourne. And I got to see Melbourne, and that's how I got to find the neighbourhood that we live in now, pretty much. And I feel like I know people all over Melbourne, you know, within a very short time. So that's also the way to, I guess, if you've been a nomad, it's very easy to leave a place when you don't know that many people.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to lose. You're like, okay, you know, I can leave, I could go to the next place. It's not that hard. But now, I mean, I don't know where I would go that would be better than this.
You've put your roots down now.
Yeah. I mean, it helps that I met someone. It does help. Who is from, you know, that helps too.
Well, that also was something that was bubbling away in the kitchen while you were doing it.
That's true.
So this is your business partner, now your life partner, and the person who you were working with on the fermentation, and so this is it's such a wonderful story to read. People to have a read of the introduction before they get into the recipes to get an idea, because I love your book. It's such a beautiful story of an individual's life, of finding this kind of this purpose and having things fall in place for them. And it kind of looks like a crazy ride for you, completely unintentional, and it just got you to the most beautiful place to make these smoked jalapeno sauerkraut, which is I think it's the best thing ever.
Last time I came to Melbourne, our mutual friend.
You were saying,
sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
No, I was going to say that. I was going to name the audience.
Yeah. You go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, you tell the story.
I was just going to say that the first time we tasted your smoky jalapeno sauerkraut, we were just like, what is this? Why have we never had this before? So Lordy, of course, sent us both home with some. And then the next time I went to Melbourne a few weeks back, she sent me home with 2 more jars. She's such a sweetie. So Lordy's a mutual friend
I'm coming
of ours.
It's this time to Melbourne. I'm going to pack it with jalapenos.
I think I better send you some. I'll bring you some. You're coming in a few weeks, aren't you?
Yeah, we are.
Definitely. So
3 weeks.
We definitely want to make use of that trip to stock up.
Mind you, we do have the recipe in your cookbook.
I do. In fact, I was just speaking to this, like what do you call it, a mentor in business. And he was like, "You've got to be an idiot to put all your IP and your recipes in a book." And I was like, "Oh no, that's the whole point. My point wasn't to start a business. It's to spread the word."
Yeah, I love it.
Delicious ferment.
Well, not everybody has time to make them, so they're still going to buy them.
That's right. There's a little bit of confidence in there that's saying, you can do this, but I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
You're like,
But we love that too, not just out of pure laziness, but to know that someone is making such a high quality product and actually is on a mission to influence the world positively, have their life be an expression of positivity. We want to support people like that as well. So there's that aspect too, where you go like, we want to have this product in our kitchen because we just want to make sure that whatever work that you're doing, you can continue to do. And this is, I think, the beautiful way this new economy is emerging, one where we're putting our money towards the people whose causes we believe in. And this is our entire business is based on other people and what we do and coming in to support us, Sharon. So, you give to them the gift of a book or something like that, but they also give in return, and it's just a wonderful thing. But I wanted to talk about Sander Katz and your time with Sander Katz.
Oh yeah.
Maybe can you tell us who he is for the people who don't know, and his significance in our days now, like what people have learned from him and what he's brought to the world, and what your personal experience was when you went and mentored him.
Oh, that's a lot to talk about. I'm always surprised when I do a workshop and people come and to learn about fermenting from me, and I bring up sandal cats, and I'm like, you know, who doesn't know sandal cats? And a lot of people put their hand up, and I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, I'm so offended. How can you not know? Anyway, he is a wonderful, gentle human who really pretty much was one of the instigators for the whole fermentation revolution, I guess, or no, what would you call that? Bringing it back into our vocab every day. And he would have started this early 90s, I guess. And when I was living in Seattle, I had started this sourdough project, and I heard him on the radio or something, and then I ordered his, back then it wasn't a book yet, it was a zine, a magazine. Mm-hmm. And I got hold of that, and then he went to the local college. It was a naturopathy college, and I saw him there. But who was I? I didn't know that I was going to get into this then. But I loved his book. I loved his voice in the book. And I always called him Shandor in my mind, because I had a friend called Shandor from Hungary. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I applied for an internship, so that would have been 2015, for people who are fermenting the business, and I got in. So I went over there, and he lives on just outside of an intentional community, and he started fermenting because of that intentional community, and they are in the middle of nowhere, pretty much off-grid. Mostly the people there are HIV positive or seeking refuge from the world in some way, I feel. And they were growing their own vegetables, and they had too much, just as you do. And, you know, in the world, in our world anyway, we have lost sight of that, actually, that a season is full of abundance, and then you preserve and you live a little bit meekly, and then, you know, there's abundance again. But he found that with abundance he needed to preserve that, and started fermenting. And because where they were, there were crocks and empty things lying around, apparently, and that started his fervour. He calls it fermentation fervour. And he wrote a book about it, and it just grew. And for him, definitely snowballed. He's won a James Beard Award, and he's internationally renowned now. He doesn't have a business in fermenting, you know. His business is talking about it and letting other people talk about it. The internship that I went on was amazing for me in a couple of ways. Firstly, because I'd been, you know, steeped in this thing here in Australia, and with my kids and Roger, who'd come along and making this business, and then I got to go over there and just stop for a second. And everyone in the room was very similar, not similar to me, but were in time, but more than the fermenting, I think it was seeing people in this intentional community. It really moved me, how peaceful and slow life could be. And, you know, that's how life should be, really, you know. Mm-hmm. That hadn't left me, actually, that impression.
I want to ask you about the title of your book. I want to clarify. Is it Ferment for Good or Ferment for Good? Is it a noun or a verb?
Ferment for Good.
All right.
It's a verb. Yeah.
and can you explain to us the reason behind the name, and what the significance and meaning is for you? What you mean with that statement?
You're right. It has a few. It can be read a few different ways. Well, I think it's sort of self-explanatory when you think about my story a little bit. It's fermenting for your inner good, you know, for your gut health. And for me, it was for my daughters and now for the rest of the city. And then it's also for the goodness of your soul. I think it's there's something very connected about the process of fermentation, and it's grounding, and it's a slowness. these days everything just happens so fast. Even
Yeah.
I'm noticing now, we do mail orders on our website, and the receipt, when you click buy, it says 7 to 10 days on it. But people will email me 2 days later and say, "Hey, where's my book?"
Yeah.
Like, whoa, I'm not Amazon. I am 4 people business, trying to do a lot of things. And people want things straight away. And I've said to them, when you make a batch of sauerkraut, actually it only takes 5 minutes when you think about it, 5 to 10 minutes if you're fast. But you have to wait for 6 weeks or 2 weeks. And there's something about that I think is good, that we need. Yeah.
That simpler
I have a
old-fashioned
friend
way.
who's a winemaker. He was making this Pinot wine, and he had maybe 8 or 9 liters that were just spare, and he put them in a demijohn, and he put them to the side. And he said, "Oh man, awesome! Like in 5 years, I'm gonna have really great balsamic." And I'm like, 5 years? And I like this. And how excited he was about something that was going to take 5 years to happen. I'm like, how about 5 minutes? Let's go to the shop now and get some balsamic. And just the weight of that statement really fell on me, just to have a reminder of patience, and to be reminded that, instant gratification is just a habit that we've taken on board, and that the pace of our life is much larger than the day-to-day that we actually believe it to be. And it really set me back to this kind of introspection within myself, to look at all the areas in my life where I rush a lot, where I push myself too hard to actually get results or gratification or whatever it is, like immediately. And I think there's this kind of contemplative, meditative aspect to fermentation, where you sort of put it and you trust that it's going to come out right, and you give it its time, and you don't do anything to it, and you're just checking on it and make sure that it's going well. But other than that, you have to allow life to take place, for it to fold. Have you found that that sort of has slowed you down as well? Like, and what's your how were your attitudes progressing as you went deeper and deeper in experimentation world?
That's a nice point. Yes, definitely. For my personality too, and as a nomad, you generally, don't think past 3 years. You're like, I'm here, and then you can't imagine the future. And I think I might have written that in the book too. One beautiful aspect for me is that whilst I've not had a garden or, something that is that serious or deep, I can take my crops with me and put them on a bench, and even if it's 2 years that we need to wait, I can take it with me, and it's like the garden that you can move around with you.
Yeah.
I love that.
A movable feast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a movable feast. It's a movable garden.
Wonderful. Maybe let's start talking a bit about the book and the categories of fermentation that you cover, because isn't fermentation just like kraut and kombucha, or what else is there?
Oh my gosh. I really love the long slow ferments like soy sauce and fish sauce, and I think that's what is going to float my boat over the next little while. Longer things. But of course, you've got all your vegetable ferments that you make pretty much dry with salt, and the liquid comes from within the vegetable. Then you've got your brine vegetables, where they're a dryish vegetable, and you'd pour salt water over them to ferment like that, and using the lactic acid bacteria that's on the vegetable to ferment it. Wine, of course, there's a lot of natural wines too that are becoming more widely available. And fermenting actually has opened my eyes to a lot of, actually natural processes and how things are made, and how they've been sort of bastardized a little bit by large-scale manufacturing
industry.
The need to go faster, cheaper, make more.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy a natural fizz in a drink now.
Yeah.
I think about it a little more carefully because it's not regular that you get that. And so water kefir, I think it's maybe because our water kefir as well, we've decided to license that so that we can keep the natural sparkle. And because we've gone through that, chosen that path, it's, I've sort of looked into the wine industry and thought about how there aren't a lot of minimal intervention wines at the moment.
Yeah.
Getting more, but that sort of industry changed that quite a bit.
So just allowing the wine to ferment itself and to just care for it while it's doing that, rather than adding preservatives or acids or things like that. And that's usually done for quality control when a winemaker is making huge batches of this stuff and they can't actually be as attentive as a small batch producer who's basically caring for this as if it's a child. And use of the soy sauce, like what's the time frame of creating an aged soy sauce before you can sort of call it, a high quality sauce?
I would say 2 years.
Yeah. So I remember watching this show called The Chef's Table with this Buddhist nun in Korea. She lives in this monastery up high in the Korean mountains, and she makes these amazing kimchi and soy sauce, and hers like something like 20 years worth of fermentation goes into, and that is just staggering to have that kind of slowdown in your life, and to have to go like, well, 20 years, I might not be here for it anyway. Anyway, but I'm going to do it regardless. And it's sort of like that Chinese proverb, which I love. It says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
It's.
I do tell people often when they're kind of like, they don't understand, like, why would you make something that's not going to be, ready for the cheese? And I'm like, but you would plant a tree. I mean, you've got to think food preparation similar to gardening, I think, because people plant trees, and they're not going to be ready for 10, 20 years. And you don't plant a tree going, I might not be here to see this, so what's the point? You plant it because you might not be here to see it. You're planting a tree to leave it there, maybe make the world a bit better. So
I'll have to start thinking of fermenting as something I do for my children for the future.
I do sometimes. My kids are like, "Oh, please don't leave us." Too many.
That'll probably be my kids too. Have notes on all the
go to the cellar and throw out all Mum's cheese. Yeah.
This one's going to be ready in 20 years. This one's ready in 2030.
Yeah.
Love it. Can I ask some questions about the practical side of fermenting?
Yes.
Can you tell me, this is a question that we get a lot, how important is it to use organic vegetables?
I feel like that's always a loaded question, and I'm like, do you only like organic vegetables? But I don't think it's as important as people think, depending on the vegetable. Yeah. Obviously. So a bunch of carrots from Coles, that's been months in getting there, and whether it's organic or not, still has been months in getting there. So just know that logistically, those organic carrots in Coles have not come direct from your local farmer, But then if that's all you've got, if Coles is all you've got, then you would definitely want to get those organic carrots from there over the other ones sitting there. For me at the Fermentary, we have two big cabbage farmers nearby. Actually, we have three. And one of them, obviously, I prefer to get our cabbages organically grown. Yeah. But the one nearby is minimal intervention. And I've learned a lot about the soil and caring for the soil over the last... Actually, your soil and your gut, there's a correlation. I sort of treat them the same, Yeah. That guy has said, now and then he'll need to spray something. But what you need for cabbages is very mild and always gone. So we've had the cabbages tested and there's nothing on them by the time we get them. Yeah. me that early on, and I was like, oh, I don't know. But actually, for sauerkraut, I've read a lot of different people who sell starter culture saying that you need organic and otherwise those pesticides kill all the bacteria. It's just not true. Not true. So otherwise I wouldn't be, none of my veggies would ferment, We've had our cabbage and sauerkraut measured for probiotics, and it's really high and really beautiful, diverse amount of bacteria. And that's what I think we're after important. As well. Yeah. There's 3 different kinds of bacteria, but less amounts of bacteria, but more variety. That's what we're missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that variety aspect?
So in Australia, any of our ferments that are made with a starter culture is nearly everything. Really, the law states that we're only allowed to import it. There's only about 5 or 6 different cultures that we are importing. So that's your range right there that you're getting in all of your food that's made here. Cheese and yogurts, they're all the same culture pretty much. And we're putting that in our gut. Yeah. So, but our gut requires 30 to 50 different kinds, all lactic acid and similar family, but different kinds. That's what we're missing, variety. Yeah. So that's how you're going to. And originally, the Fermentary little logo was fighting gut democracy, because that's what I was doing at the time. We're thinking about changing that now, but at the time I was like, no, we need, the world and your gut needs a wide variety of things to have a democratic society, and there's no good and bad bacteria unless they're out of balance. And that happens easily if you've only got a few different kinds. Yeah.
Well said. This is, again, this kind of dialectic, I guess, that we're putting around having to polarize things all the time. Like we have to, it's either good or bad. You have to.
Yeah. If it's not organic, it's not good, things. Or whatever.
It's really, Or even if a bacteria is sort of out to get you somehow, and then you have to, wage a war against a disease or, things like that. It's just a strange way, like language makes us have these belief systems. Just with regards to things like fermentation and cabbage, like making, say, your sauerkraut, is there a specific season for these things, or do you find that like winter is a better time, or autumn? Like when do you prefer to ferment?
It would be great. In Victoria, cabbage is growing pretty well all season. Wombok aren't. Wombok, for our kimchi, we use wombok, and that's definitely ending right now, the good times of kimchi making. I think it's definitely a beautiful time to ferment is in the winter. That's traditional. The temperatures are cool. People tend to think of fermenting as a warm thing, but with vegetables, cool and slow is really bringing out the most complex flavors. And
that's good to know.
It's how we did it a long time ago.
Yeah.
So yes, if I could do everything between June and now, it'd be great. But we don't. We make water kefir all year round. Yeah, and that's for us the seasonal flavours. That's when seasons come in. Cabbages in Victoria, they're growing all year. So we keep making our sauerkraut all year long. And we're in an old abattoir. So the temperature sits pretty cool. Unfortunately, for some of our staff are like, why is it so cold in here? And in the summer, everyone's in there going, oh, so nice to be here. But it stays cold. But the water kefir, we're doing some fun things now that we've got a bit more time as far as foraging, or I don't know what's the word, second. So there's a Yarra Valley strawberry conglomerate. Is that what it would be? A group of farmers. And they throw out about 1 million, I feel like I'm making it up, but about 1 million tonne of, is that be right? No. It's a high number of strawberries a year, a season. So half of what they grow, they throw out.
Wow, why is that?
What?
And so, maybe it has maybe it rained and there are little pock marks in it, or they described to us a number of reasons to throwing them out? Very carefully making the strawberries sound really bad, but do you want them? And we're like, yeah, we'll try it, And we got them. And the first delivery, we just took 30 kilos and we had them here in the house. And I felt like I was back in Denmark because I was like, kids, eat as many as you like, again.
Yeah.
Strawberries.
So what's for breakfast? Strawberries. What's for lunch? Strawberries. What's for dinner? I guess strawberries.
It was really only one evening. It was one evening for them.
They were gone.
I was supposed to be using them for the fermentary, but it was 30 kilos, but there was nothing wrong with them that we could see. Wow. And I asked them, gosh, you shouldn't be throwing this many out. And we're not a huge company, so I don't know if I can use, is it 1 million kilos? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I can use all of that right now, but I know some jam makers. And they said, oh, no, we've already contacted most of the jam makers. It's cheaper for them to import strawberries processed and frozen from South America than it is for them to go and get them on the Yarra Valley.
Terrible.
No.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's a big part of what I'm learning, what I've learned over the last few years with a manufacturing business, is how broken our food system is throughout the world.
Wow.
That we will be importing.
So how do you see these attitudes changing? Like, how do you think you can convince a business to have a smaller profit margin and support the better cause? How would that
I'd say it's actually just conversation and communicating. That woman who started her job there, and she saw this and was mortified, because I think sometimes you get so used to something that you don't question.
Yeah.
You just don't. It's like people are buying Himalayan salt. Everyone's buying it, and I'm like, it comes from the Himalayas, and it says on the it's over 1 million years old. Who do you think is getting that salt? It's not people being paid $25 an hour, highly qualified, to chip away at this beautiful salt mine. It's children, of course, and then it's being shipped all over Australia and the world in blocks, and until it's all gone.
We totally agree on that.
Resort. And then people I see when I'm talking about Himalayan salt in my forums, whatever, I can see people's faces falling, going, I hadn't thought of it. And it's like, nobody does at the moment. We walk into a supermarket and we grab it. Yeah. We grab and we go, even though, and you've been told by someone else that Himalayan is better for you, and that person hasn't looked further. And same as the coconut fad. It's just a crazy food fad at the moment. And I know as a manufacturer in this gut health food realm, we've been asked by quite a few large companies to make en masse for them. And I sort of looked into it and I thought, I looked at it, but I would have had to go into massive debt to get the amount of equipment that we needed. And we would have had to change our processes and do a few things. And, that if just say that supermarket decided to drop that line, I would be left with that debt.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just a little bit of an insight to what might go on overseas with coconut farmers.
Sorry.
Who if you get this and you can get that.
I can't seem to get it to stop.
We will buy this amount from you. They want me to stop.
I'll unplug it.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Yes, we'll just take a second.
I'm on a bit of a rant anyway.
Go ahead.
No, it's a good rant.
Keep ranting.
These are the things we want to talk about. Like, it's lovely to talk about things like recipes and sauerkraut, which we'll get to. But, this podcast is here to raise awareness of these issues to people and to highlight the things that are broken with our food system. So please rant away.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's also it's not just the food system. It's a little bit of, and it's not our fault, but it's complacency and the lack of and curiosity that we have towards food. And it's not like I'm going, everyone's crap. It's just that we haven't been trained to think like that, and we're just very comfortable. And as soon as you say to people, think about where that comes from, they go, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought. And with the coconuts, that's what I sort of start thinking, gosh, if the food fad of coconuts, if someone says actually it's not that good for you, or when we get sick of all the coconut water and coconut milk, there will be farmers that are left with debt and debilitating debt. And so maybe the farms and the lands, because that kind of sudden demand isn't great. I don't think. I can't imagine it being that.
No, I agree with you, because in any case, like, to keep up with that kind of demand, they have to clear maybe forests or old growth vineyards or groves or whatever it is that they're doing to plants that are monocultured, and that places a burden on the environment in itself, and then on the farmer to continue to produce. And then when the demand goes away, it causes havoc in the economy and the individual people's lives. So, but these issues just don't exist with the local food system. They're not possible.
So much
when you're supporting your local farmers who, they have to create crops that see them throughout the year and the seasons, and they have to produce foods that are in line with the demand of that geography, rather than what the people want. Like, you can't grow a pineapple in the mountains, like, it's just not, you shouldn't be able to eat that. And if it's something like an occasional indulgence, maybe that's okay, but to be eating pineapples in winter in like the Blue Mountains where I live, it's just a complete crazy as a staple fruit, because it just doesn't, it's not sustainable for us as a species to be eating in that way.
That's right.
And I think what could be lovely is people starting to enjoy the spontaneous moment where you do have, if you live in the Blue Mountains and you do have a pineapple, or it is pineapple season and you do get them, and ferment them or make them into a drink, or use the peel, make the vinegar, do what you can to treat it as a precious thing and a precious time. And we sort of, that supermarket mentality has really trained us into thinking everything's available all the time.
Yeah, I was in Singapore just a few weeks ago, and I was looking in the supermarket. Now, Singapore is a very small island, and they don't grow most of their food. And I was looking in the supermarket, and I saw that their fresh produce came from as far as South America, Central America, places like South Africa, Vietnam, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, and that's the entire food system is based on imports, and that's because they prioritize the population and the economy over sustainability within the island. So ideally, they would have been a much smaller population growing their own food and being self-sufficient with their water supply, but now they have to import their water, and they have to import their fruit and their fresh food from all over the world. Even their meat has to come from overseas. And this is as beautiful as Singapore is. It's an incredible city, and it's really like one of those amazing places where you look at as a model city for tolerance and people living together from different religions and peacefully and all that. But this is a really serious problem with their food supply system, and this is endemic in all civilized countries, and they all are following suit. Luckily for us in Australia, we do produce most of our food, but Australia is such a large continent that it's kind of a bit funny to say, well, this is a local Australian product that comes from South Australia when you live in New South Wales, because it gives you that false view of locality, and it's still not local if it's come in a refrigerated truck and was picked 4 months ago. You can't call it so in that sense.
No. In my ideal, as far as demand for, Joe?
Yes, Joe?
Sorry, it's got a real lag on the time, so I'm having a hard time saying anything. Sorry. I was trying to put a word in a few times, but just the whole idea of the seasonal food. That's why I just love my CSA box that I get delivered each week. I don't think about. I don't have to think about what's in season. I just get it delivered to me. So whatever's there, that's what I use. And when pineapples are in season, that's when we eat them. And when the tropical fruit's in season, that's when we eat it. And it's not a case of going to the supermarket. Well, I do use some things from the supermarket, but I'm very aware of what's in season because of the box that's delivered from local farmers. So I love that, and having such a glut of one thing for a while, like you say, that's the perfect time to ferment that thing. So it's good.
Yeah. And I wish I had a CSA box from Queensland just quietly, because
I must just tell you that
getting a pineapple in my
our local area has the most variety in the smallest area of all of Australia.
Really?
Yeah, because we have the tropical Daintree tropical fruits. We have the drier high tablelands. We have the wetter tablelands. We have the coastal, all in a few kilometres. So we grow a big variety up here. You have to come visit.
I was going to say, see what you've done now. I feel amazing.
Uh-oh. You can bring your crops and come live next door to me.
Have you tried black sapote before?
We have a beautiful, a great CSA here.
Oh, that's good.
That I'm trying to promote, and people can pick the boxes up from our porch here in Fitzroy.
Oh, awesome.
And it's organic.
That's right.
And
Lordy gets hers from you guys, doesn't she? Same place?
It's a new startup.
Okay.
That's right. That's how we, one of the ways we connected. Yeah.
Fuad was just saying, have you ever tried black sapote?
What?
Have you ever tried
black sapote?
Yeah, chocolate pudding fruit.
No.
Oh, well, that's what you'll have to come visit for then.
You've got to. That's one good reason to. Yeah, one good reason to come and visit the Tablelands is trying the food. It is incredible. Sharon, can you to sort of tie up the podcast and maybe just give our listeners from all the recipes in the book, can you give us an idea of the ones that are easiest to start off with and have people sort of if they're starting to get. Well, go ahead and ask it then.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, what should people start with? What's simple? I'm used to it. No. I was just going to say, what's something that you really recommend people start with? Same question.
I really lean towards a honey ferment because everybody can get honey generally. You can get hold of honey and garlic. That's a real start, and generally pretty amazing because people don't think of honey as being full of life, and the garlic brings it out in the honey, and it tastes really great straight away. Or once you start that, not using garlic but something like nectarines or blackberries.
So what does that look like as a process?
So it needs to be raw honey, and you can get a lot of raw honey now, thank goodness, due to conservation and demand.
Yes.
They've stopped heat processing honey. A lot of companies have. So you just get your honey and say just in a little jar, one of those sort of jam jars that has a lid will do. And if you peel, say, 5 or 10 little garlic cloves and pop them in and pour the honey over the top. And you don't even need to worry about a weight or anything really. Just be really casual and put the lid on. And within a day or two, the honey will become more liquid.
Yes.
And will cover all of the garlic up, and you'll need to release the gas. That's the fun bit, and it can get quite fizzy and fizz over. So make sure you leave headroom. You know what I mean, like a gap between the top of the honey and the lid. You can't have it filled all the way up to the top. It'll ooze out and turn you off forever. But with the fruit, for example, in the winter when I've got my summer fruits in honey, the honey taste. For example, I did nectarines just because. The nectarine was going a bit soft on one side, so I quickly chopped one up into slivers and popped it in this jar of honey. And it was actually the jar of honey that was leftover honey. Do you know what I mean? I just even put it right into the jar and left it there for ages. And then in the winter with our porridge, we just would spoon over this beautiful nectarine-flavoured honey over our porridge and the blackberry-flavoured honey. Yeah.
Oh, incredible.
That's a really easy one.
I've never tried that.
Does the honey have to cover the fruit?
Yes, it does. But when you first do it, particularly with the garlic, it'll float to the top and it'll stress you out. People go, oh, no, mine's not working. But you just open the lid and sort of pop it down with a spoon and give it a stir. And eventually, I've got honey and garlic that have been around for 3 years. And the garlic, or more actually now, 5 years. Wow. The garlic is quite translucent when you slice it. You can eat it raw. It's really mild and gentle. And the honey... In those batches, the honey's getting low because my middle daughter is a singer and she uses that for her throat all the time.
I've done that before for throat.
Is there a concern about botulism or anything like that? fermenting garlic, or is that something that we don't have to worry about?
Probably, but I don't worry. I haven't worried about it.
And does it not go in the fridge at all? It just stays out?
If you're honey and garlic, no, never. Okay. But I would say about the botulism, actually, that the lactic acid bacteria is pretty strong, and it happens within 24 hours. So when it comes, I know toxins can outlive things like that, but I've never really heard about any botulism problems with honey garlic ferments. I mean, I think,
I am so going to try that today. It's going on. Yum.
I'll take the risk. It sounds too delicious.
Yeah. I've got nectarines sitting there waiting for me too.
There you go. Now you'll have nectarines all winter.
Oh.
Honey, and you'll thank me for it. And the kids think they're complimenting me because they say, I serve the peaches up on the porridge as well. And they're like, oh, these are just like canned peaches. Well, they're not. They're fermented.
So much better.
They're alive still. That's the difference. Yeah. Wow. So do you have any more questions for Sharon? Or
I was at Cale Brock's Gut movie the other night, and people were asking questions about fermenting, and they were sort of saying, if you have gut issues, what would you suggest starting with, and what is a later food that you would bring in later? So I know with GAPS, they usually say start with a little bit of sauerkraut juice and work your way up to things like milk kefir and stuff later. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I get a lot of people talking about that. In general, when I've finished a workshop on kraut making, people ask me, how much should I take?
Yeah.
I go back to the beginning of, this is actually food. So unless you're on a protocol and you are, then you treat this exactly like the delicious, delicious food, and you eat it. And if you have bloating, then you can go back and go, oh, that caused bloating. But I've really found that the disconnect between what we're making and it being a very traditional food that is good for you, but it's not just purely a medicine. It's just another aspect of food that's been missing from our diets for about 100 years. So treat it like something, oh my God, thank God we remembered this. Treat it like a food first. If you're on a protocol, then definitely, and I have a lot of people now buying our sauerkraut juice and kimchi juice who are going through chemo or they can't digest cabbage at all. It is a very good and gentle way to start. But I actually feel like you have to have a pretty out-of-balance gut to not be able to eat sauerkraut. I mean, I think you should be able to eat kimchi and sauerkraut without too much trouble. And if you are a person who can't, you'd know it already. You'd know it.
It's usually people with histamine issues and really bad gut issues that have to start very slowly.
So a lot of my people that come in are foodies or trying to start their gut health journey. So I'm always like, you know what, just first, please, you treat this as another member of your food life, and try and first find ways that you are going to eat it not through this next few months because you're on a paleo diet or, get excited and have a bit of kraut in a Buddha bowl and then forget about it. You've got to find ways to eat it.
That's such a nice way to make it look like the fad that it could be.
I don't want to be a fad. I'm not interested in being connected into a fad. I'm really interested in the fact
traditional
that in Australia we don't have this in our recipe or in our minds as like, oh, I'm having some avocado on toast, a bit of jalapeno kraut. It's delicious. It's good for you too, but let's just think of it as, oh my God, it's so good. It tastes so fresh and I feel good after eating it. Yummy.
Once you really start to develop a taste for it, no meal seems complete without something fermented, does it? It just doesn't seem right.
That's right. Yep. That's right.
It's got that tangy flavour you want.
Having said all that, we don't have bitter and sour in our Australian diet naturally really anymore. So that's why I'm just all about bringing that in and teaching people that it missing from our diet, and how to stay around for the long haul, not just be part of any fad, health fad, because I'm a bit worried about that.
Yeah.
If it is a fad, it's the oldest fad on the planet. You know?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Kefir is my darling, though. I do think that, and I have seen it heal a lot of simple issues like esophageal problems and reflux, and people taking Nexium for 10 years and then starting milk kefir and not taking it anymore.
It's an amazing
I've seen
food.
That. Yeah, it seems to be a very magical healer, and I believe in that quite strongly. That milk kefir is the one. If you had to choose one to heal a gut, it would be definitely milk kefir for me.
Yeah, wonderful. And you can, for people who are just starting eating fermented foods, you might find might find unpleasant maybe in the beginning if you're not used to sour flavors or bitter flavors and things like that, but immediately your body starts recognizing it as something that's missing from its diet, like really important, easy to digest nutrient. And the bacteria that comes into your body, they help modulate your immune system, they help break down food for you and digest it, they help make vitamins for you. These are incredibly important allies that we need to be eating on a consistent basis, and so important that we start including more and more of these foods in our diet and use them to accompany our meals, like having fermented foods with starches, for instance, blunts the insulin spike that may take place and allows you to regulate your blood sugar more. And it's endless the amount of benefit that you get from fermented foods. Just wonderful stuff. Sharon, Ferment For Good, Ancient Foods for the Modern Gut is the name of your book. Where can people find it?
Hopefully at all good bookstores, or you can get it from our website, or we do charge postage, but I sign the book then, and we sometimes put little things in there, but otherwise, online booksellers like Depository. I'd like to recommend your local bookseller, but they often just order one or two at once, and
that's true.
Have to go in and hassle them.
Have
you found that? Yeah. With your book, are you in bookstores with your beautiful, beautiful book? Yeah. Okay.
Only ones that contact
I just noticed the book industries. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a funny industry that I've just learned about too. It's, the book's doing really well. It's gone into second print, but at the same time, I'm just such a virgin in industry, I'm like, this actually has its own politics and its own games as well. Oh, doesn't it? Publishing. Yeah.
We don't worry about it. We just do our thing.
That's right. And
just
do it. Yep.
Well, what about your business? What's its name, and where can people find the products?
So the business is The Fermentary, and you can find our products throughout Victoria at little independent grocers and health food stores, some lovely upmarket supermarkets, Leo's, there's that. And then in Sydney as well, and there are a couple in Queensland. You can contact me to if you have a little store that you want to be in and you're not in yet.
How do they contact you? How do they do that?
Through the website.
Okay, and what is the website, sorry? thefermentary.com.au. Wonderful.
Awesome.
And Jo, do you have any finishing questions? Or
no, that's good.
Sharon?
No, that's good. I think she's answered everything I was going to ask. I love your story, Sharon, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you when we come to Melbourne, hopefully.
Yeah. How many nights are you here for?
Oh, I'm here.
One of our sponsors.
Yeah.
I
have to catch up.
Yeah.
I think Claudia and Vince are going to take me to Dalesford. I'm not really sure. So hopefully we'll be able to get a chance to see you there as well.
Oh, great.
I wanted to mention we have a sponsor, Weleda. They make incredible body products and all natural, made from plant botanicals, and they always offer us to send some to our wonderful guests. So we're gonna send some a gift back to you at some point within the next couple of weeks. Yeah, they're incredible,
they're
right?
beautiful.
So, so we'll get some across to you, Sharon. Thank you so much for taking the time today to speak to us and to our audience, and we'll catch you in December.
Yes, see you soon. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure for us. Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks so much, Sharon.
Thank you.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.